there everybody, Coach Brandon here today with Coach Adam, and he's going to be helping me show you guys the introduction to our back attack system. We're just starting to get into our submission systems in the curriculum, and we're going to start by working from the best position in the art, back control. Literally the best advantage you can have over your opponent. You're literally behind them. They can't even see you. They're not facing you. Before we get to all of our submissions, you first need to know how to maintain back control long enough in order to get to the submission. It doesn't matter how good your submissions are from back control if you can't hold somebody there for longer than 10 or 15 seconds. So the first part of this video, the majority of today's video, and this week's lesson, is going to be on maintaining back control. Your opponent's going to be trying to escape, and you're going to have to stop their escape. Then we'll touch on the basic rear naked choke, and that'll be our introduction into some of the other submissions from the back system that we're going to look at in the coming weeks. Okay? So let's start off just with some bare minimum essentials, just what is back control and what are the bare minimum requirements we need to hold it. And then we'll look at how to recover position as we're losing it. Let's look at back control first. Adam's just going to face the camera right there. So back control is comprised of two types of controls, an upper body control and a lower body control. Let's talk about the upper body control first, okay? If I have, typically our upper body control is with a seatbelt. A seatbelt is where I have one arm over Adam's shoulder and the other one underneath the other shoulder. So I'm over on one side and under on the other. Understand that these two arms have two different tasks. I have one hand that's a choking hand. This is the one that's actually going to be threatening the neck. This is the only one that can threaten the neck because it's over the shoulder. If I try to attack the neck with this one, his shoulder's in the way. So I have a choking arm. This is a control arm. This helps me control Adam's rotation in his body. If I have a rear wrist ride grip, just right over the wrist or over the knuckle line, and I hold this, and Adam tries to rotate, I can stop him from turning to his right by pulling. He tries to turn to his left and flare my elbow open, framing my elbow against his elbow. So he turns to the left, he can't do that either. He turns to his right, pull back, he can't do that. So this control hand gives us control of his ability to rotate within us. If I don't have this, he might be able to start to rotate and turn and face me. Okay, so that's our upper body control. We have one arm underneath that controls rotation through this grip, and the other hand over the top so we can always threaten a choke. Sometimes if you want more control, you can go underneath and get two control hands, either here or here with a chest lock or a rear chest lock. If you want extra submission opportunity, you could go with two overarms. But understand that if you do this, you're giving up control and your opponent could very well escape. So we only use this in very specific circumstances, typically when I have a body triangle locked. We'll talk about that later. Here, this gives me great control, but I have no ability to choke Adam. I have no ability to actually finish the fight. So we want to work with a balance. Again, if I'm here, I'm all control and no threat. If I'm here, I'm all threat and no control. I want to work here with a good compromise between the two. Control on one hand, a threat on the other. Another important element of the upper body control is the head trap. If I want to submit Adam, or even if I just want to control him, I typically want what's called a head trap. That is Adam's head trapped between my head and my choking arm. This is the only way that I can get a sufficient choke on Adam. If at any point Adam is able to take my choking arm and my head to the same side of his head like so, or if he's able to force his head to the other side of my head, there is no choke. Even if Adam is right here and Adam gives me a choke, there's no way I can finish this because I can't close off this side of the neck. I need to be here if I want the choke to be effective. So we need to keep that head trap in effect. Again, the head trap is where his head is literally trapped between my head and my choking arm. His head is sandwiched between the two. So if we have a seatbelt and a head trap, and we maintain chest to back connection, we're doing well with the upper body. It's very hard for Adam to get away. If he ever goes to start defending the choke, that gives me a great opportunity to take this grip that we talked about a little bit ago, this rear wrist ride. So if I'm over here and I don't have the rear wrist ride, all I need to do is threaten the choke, and that'll give me the wrist ride. Okay? So that's our upper body. Let's talk about lower body now. Here I have two symmetrical hooks. This is what's required for me to score points in a jiu-jitsu setting. I need my left foot inside his left knee, and my right foot inside the right knee. Now understand, it's not the hooks themselves that give you a great control over your opponent. It's actually your knees. My knees, sandwiched on either side of his hips, give me control. My hooks maintain the knee position. If we fall to the side here, let's face the camera here. If Adam tries to jump his bottom leg over my knee, my hook holds my knee position in place. My hook will stop him from getting over my knee. So the hook solidifies the knee position, but it's the knee that's controlling. If my hook comes out, now Adam goes over the knee, he can start to do so, and notice I'm no longer controlling the back. So I'm actually controlling the back with my knees, and my hooks just anchor my knee position in place. My hooks help to solidify my knee position outside of his hip. We're going to draw a parallel between this and the upper body. In the upper body, my control is actually my elbows. A lot of people think it's the hands. When I'm here, I'm actually taking my two elbows and I'm wedging my elbows like so. Here against the crook of the neck, and here against the pocket of the arm. So when Adam goes to move around me here and tries to get out, my elbows actually control him pretty well. Okay? Let's contrast this to situations where I loosen my elbows, but I connect my hands. And Adam goes to move from here he goes to escape and move around, he can move pretty well in here. So it's not actually the hands locking that solidify the position, it's my elbows pinching and controlling. So you'll see a lot of times when I lock my hands from back control, I don't grab hands, I grab up the arm a little bit because I like to be able to pinch my elbows. Okay, this gives me good control. We control the elbows, the hands just lock the elbows in place. Same thing with the lower body. I control at the knees, but my feet and hooks lock the body and lock my knees in place. Let's talk about some other methods of controlling the lower body we can have. Symmetrical hooks is actually one of the weakest we can have. When we're on our side, if Adam can get over my bottom hook, he's beaten the hook. That will allow him to beat the knee. And once he beats the knee, he can start to recover guard, and he's no longer under my control. So let's talk about post rear mount and body triangles. Again, if I have symmetrical hooks, it's very easy for Adam to pummel his knee inside and through my ankles. But from back control, I don't want to have symmetrical hooks. Again, this is how I score points. Let's take just a little more to make sure we're getting a good angle. There we go. This is how I score points. But this will hold them in place longer. So watch, I'm going to take my knee along the body, I post my foot on the hip, and my bottom leg comes up across his hip line. Now if Adam tried to jump over my bottom hook again, it's very hard to do so because my hook is so high. Another thing is that I'm connecting my feet together. This is also important. When I have back control, even with symmetrical hooks, if my feet are apart, Adam can pummel his knee through my feet. Good. Even without moving the hips, even if we're just here, you can just, yeah, boom, excellent. So when I'm here, I want to keep my
the circle around his body closed. I'm actually going to step on my own shin here, connecting my feet. So when he tries to pummel his knee through my feet, the circle is closed. There is no between my feet, or if there is, but he'd have to separate my 2 feet. So he'd have to attack and eventually take your knee between my feet. And he'd need my feet to come apart. I want to keep them together, close the circle around his body. Okay? We don't want to cross ankles here. If I cross ankles, Adam's going to hook over my feet, and he's going to submit me. Go ahead, Adam, demonstrate your camera. And now he arches, and he can actually break my ankles using each other. He breaks my right ankle over my left ankle. So we don't cross feet, we just connect feet like so. Now if I'm like this and he goes to break my feet, it's not there. Even better is where we go where we keep not our feet in the middle, but we bring our feet here into this post rear mount. We're gonna pushing on the hip, and my foot comes high. Adam tries to go over my bottom hook, not easy. We can go the extra distance, and we can lock a body triangle, which is best of all. Where I take my right ankle, my bottom hook, and I hide it behind my top knee. Now when Adam tries to jump over my bottom hook, obviously he'll never get over. Okay? I have a set of locked closed wedges around his hips that hold my knees on either side of his hips.
So we have in the upper body a seat belt, which gives us a good balance between control on the one hand and submission on the other. And the lower body, I want to keep my feet connected, closed, so he can't jump between my 2 feet. And ideally, I want my bottom hook nice and high, or even best of all, locked into a figure 4. Now let's talk about maintaining back control a little bit. One of the biggest things we need to keep if we want to maintain back control is diagonal control. One of the biggest things we need to establish if we want to take the back, if we want to first get to the back, is going to be diagonal control. So what is diagonal control? Let me demonstrate for the camera. Diagonal control is the idea that I'm controlling the opposite 2 points of his body. One shoulder and the opposite hip, diagonally across the body. This will control all sorts of movement in Adam. Okay? If I have one hip control and one shoulder control, if Adam goes to move and get out of this situation, it's not easy. My hook stops Adam from turning to his right. My control of the opposite shoulder stops him from turning to his left. My control of the hips stops Adam's hips from scooting down and away from me very easily. My control of the shoulder stops Adam's head from sitting forward and moving, sitting forward away from me. Let's say I control 2 sides of the body, both upper and lower, but now Adam can easily turn to his right and turn to face me. Or if I have both hooks controlled, Adam can easily sit forward, sitting away from me, and it's very hard for me to attack the neck. If I'm here with a seatbelt, Adam can very easily scoot his hips away from me and start to slide his head out, and I lose the back. So we want to maintain, at all times, some form of diagonal control at a bare minimum. Obviously, the more points of control we have, the better. But at a bare minimum, we want diagonal control. Control of one corner and the opposite corner. So let's start talking about what to do when our opponent starts to escape the back. We establish back control, and then our opponent is going to engage in a very predictable set of movements that if I know what they are, I can intercept them, or I can be ready for them, and then I can counter by retaking the back. We're going to work this kind of systematically through. We're going to start with the easiest first, where our opponent escapes just a little bit, and then we're going to work our way to where our opponent escapes more and more. We're going to look at a number of options. Let's lay this out as an overview. So we're going to look at a situation where Adam escapes the bottom hook, and how do I recover that? We'll look at a situation where Adam escapes over the bottom knee, and how I recover that. We'll look at a situation, so that's the bottom. We'll look at a situation where Adam escapes the top hook, and we'll deal with how to deal with that. We'll look at a situation where he starts to escape the top hip, and he starts to turn almost a turtle a little bit. And we'll look at how to deal with that, where now I'm losing my knee position.
Okay, so we'll learn how to deal with all the lower body escapes. Then we're going to look at the upper body. From the choking side, we're going to look at what to do when Adam beats my choking arm. And we'll look at what to do here. We'll look at what to do when he escapes my control arm. He pummels his elbow inside. And now I no longer have a control arm. And we'll look at how to deal with that from both the choking side, and then we'll also look at it from the control side, where we're on the other side here. And once again, Adam can either escape the head trap to one side by beating the choking arm here, or he can escape the head trap to the other side by getting his head to the floor, or even worse, by pummeling the elbow inside my control arm, and now things are getting worse and worse. Okay, so we're going to start looking at how to deal with all these different scenarios.
And then we'll finally cap off the video by showing the most basic submission in Jiu-Jitsu, the rear naked choke. Okay, so let's get started with looking at recovering the hook position. So I've got Adam's back. And let's face over here now. I'm here, and Adam's going to fall over the choking side.
We're here. Adam starts the process of beating my bottom hook. Adam is, he's separated my 2 feet. Do you remember that I always want to have my feet together? I never wanted to escape my feet. So if Adam starts to escape, I'm going to pass this hook over and I'm going to turn this into a long hook. So I have a long hook, one that goes across both feet or both hips, and I have a short hook. My bottom hook is a short hook, my top hook is a long hook. So now when Adam tries to escape his hips over my knee, my left leg is back heeling. When Adam goes to jump his right hip over my right knee, I'm holding his hips in place with a back heel. And now I have 2 options. I can either go right to a post-rear mount by extracting my bottom leg, so even though Adam drops his weight on my hips, I'm going to pull his hips in here with my left, and I'm going to extend my right leg to extract my bottom hook again. My bottom hook goes high, and now my left foot is going to come out. I'm going to step on the hip, and I go into my post-rear mount to assert control. So again, I'm here. Adam jumps over my bottom hook. As soon as I feel my feet separate, I try to connect my legs again. I try to take my top foot and I step on my bottom shin, closing the circle once again around his hips. I'm going to back heel with my top leg, so as Adam tries to slip his hips over my knee, he cannot. If I'm not back heeling, Adam might slip the hip over my knee, and we'll deal with that in a little bit. But I'm back heeling for now. Now from here, I can go to a post-rear mount, where I extract my bottom leg, I start to bring it high, and then my left foot is going to step on his hip to solidify the position. Here. Another option I have is a side switch. So I'm here, Adam beats the bottom hook. I put in my long hook. My bottom leg extends and I grab the floor with my toes. Now from here, I'm going to engage in a reverse shrimp, pulling my hips underneath of Adam as I push myself to the opposite side. When I land on the opposite side, you'll notice I end up with a high bottom hook. So we end up here. I go to my post-rear mount on this side after we did a side switch, and now I've recovered the hook. Adam threatened to beat my bottom hook, and I've recovered position. So we had a side switch. So we can either put in a long hook, and then use that long hook to extract our bottom leg to go to a post-rear mount on that same side. Or we can put in a long hook to control the hips, and then we use our bottom leg to reach for the floor and push us to the other side. So we switch sides. So we once again recover our bottom hook. Now let's look at a situation where Adam starts to beat the bottom knee. He's not only beating the hook, but he's beating the knee. Once again, let's face the back wall. And let's go a little bit this way. Perfect. He's going to fall to the side. He starts to get over my foot, so I go with a long hook. Now, even though I have a long hook, Adam keeps going and he beats my knee, he gets off my knee. Now, a big problem here, or what I'm worried about, I should say, is Adam slipping and freeing this elbow. So even though He's beaten my bottom knee. He hasn't beaten this elbow yet. So I'm going to keep my inside elbow position, and I'm going to shoot through, taking a claw grip on this side. Now I'm going to hip heist. So I'm going to drive off my right toes, coming up to my knee. You can either do this while staying down on your shoulder, or you can prop up to your elbow as well. Propping up to your elbow is probably a little better, so let's do that. So I'm here as Adam escapes, I secure my claw grip, and I sit forward to an elbow. When Adam tries to recover his elbow position, I'm holding his head tight to me. Now from here I'm going to hip heist. I'm going to drive my right toes into the floor to bring my right hip off the floor and slide my knee up by the head. From here I'm going to take my Kimura seatbelt grip, go head to head, and I'm going to chair sit to recover the back. So once again, he goes to the side. As I feel him beat the bottom hook, my first thing is I put in a long hook to make sure that I close the circle of my legs around his hips. As he escapes, I feel him going over my knee. So I'm going to take a claw grip, making sure I keep good control of this elbow. When Adam tries to bring this elbow back between me and him, I make sure he can't. I prop myself up to my elbow, and I drive myself up my right hip to my right knee. Now I take a Kimura seatbelt grip, head to head, and I chair sit to the back. So that was a situation where Adam beat my bottom knee, but he was not able to clear my long hook, my top hook. Now we're going to look at a situation where he beats my bottom knee, and I'm not able to get my top hook across. He does a complete hip escape, a total hip escape. His hips get out of my legs. We're going to look at a total hip escape where I'm below his shoulder line, and a total hip escape where I'm above his shoulder line. I'm here. He goes. He escapes. Now his hips get completely out. Okay, so I've lost my long hook. Same thing, I'm using my elbows to control. If my elbow flares open, Adam can free his elbow. So I keep my elbow pinched tight to his armpit. Adam goes to free his elbow. It's not easy. From here, I'm going to use a leg pendulum to come up to my left elbow, or I'm sorry, my right elbow. Right here. Again, Adam's trying to free his elbow. I keep his elbow stuck. I'm staying tight. Now from here, I hip heist up to my knee. I take my Kimura seatbelt grip, and now I want to pass my left leg over the body. In the last technique, I kept a long hook, so my leg was already over the body. But in this technique, Adam completely escaped his hips. So in this scenario, I need to lean all my weight onto my right knee and my right elbow, so I can take my left leg off the floor. And even if Adam keeps his knees closer to his chest, I'm going to try to take my foot and thread it right here into the pocket of the hip. Now I'm ready for our chair sit to the back. So that was a situation where Adam completely escaped his hips and I was below his shoulder line. What does that mean? Adam, can you just lay down there? He escaped his hips, and I was here, where my hips and most of my body is below his shoulder line here. I'm on this, most of my body is on this side of him. But what if he escapes his hips like this, and then he starts walking his hips away from me? Yes, look at how that's a problem. As Adam does that, if I stay where I'm at, his head slips free, and I lose my control of him. So we're going to look at a situation where Adam starts to rotate, or he starts to walk away, and my body starts to go above his shoulder line because his shoulder line changes. Here I'm below the shoulder line, but as he moves, his shoulder line is now facing that way. I'm now above his shoulder line. And we're going to look at what to do when I'm above his shoulder line. So let's start at the top. Here, he escapes. He escapes the hips, and now he's starting to walk above the shoulder line. When I feel this, I want to keep my ear next to his ear. If I'm here, over his head starts to slip underneath me because his head slips inside my shoulder. When I stay ear to ear, that keeps my right shoulder behind his head. And that's the goal. I need my right shoulder behind the head here. So I'm here as Adam escaped. I make sure that I lean forward and I put my shoulder behind the head. Adam goes to free the head. It's not easy. Now from here, I'm going to scissor my legs going belly down. Okay, so as Adam escaped, I scissor my legs. Put your back on the floor. And we end up just like we end up just like so. Okay, where I'm just laying on my stomach, he's laying on his back, my shoulder's still underneath of his head. Okay, but he can't free his head here. Now from here, keeping my Kimura seatbelt, I'm going to crawl up to my knees, sitting Adam up. And now I have a number of options. We have a seated breakdown here. I could try to take the back from the seated breakdown, putting a hook in and taking the back. If you don't have the mobility for that, you could stand up, staying ear to ear, walking to an angle, put the hook in and take the back. So you got a number of options there. But the idea is that as he escapes his hips, and as he continues to walk away from me, you have to keep your shoulder behind the head so his head doesn't slip out, and scissor your legs, go belly down. Show it one more time now. I got my control, he starts to escape. He gets out completely, he starts to walk away from me. I put my ear to his ear, and I turn chest down to the floor. Move your arm so I can see the camera, thank you. And I turn chest down just like this. Now, I'm going to crawl to my knees. Adam's going to be trying to get up, but I stay tight with my shoulder behind the head. When you crawl up to the knees, don't make space. You'll lose the head. Keep your arms tight. Crawl up, sit them up. I think we're getting off out of screen here. Gotta make sure we're back off the line. Here, the escapes, the hips. I stay tight. I keep my hands tight to my chin. Going belly down. I sit up. And now I can start to put hooks in and take the back. So we looked at the recovering a bottom hook. A couple different ways there, either with a posterior mount or with a side switch. We looked at recovering the bottom knee by using a long hook and hip heisting and doing a chair sit to the back. We looked at recovering a complete hip escape by using a leg pendulum and a hip heist, step over to technical mount, chair sit to the back. And now we looked at a complete hip escape where he starts to circle away from us, we end up above the shoulder line. And then we scissor our legs going belly down with a tight seatbelt, and we crawl up to our knees and take the back. Now let's look at a few situations where Adam starts to beat the top hook. This time, Adam pummels his left knee between my two ankles, and he's beating the top hook. He probably keeps his knee tight to his chest, just like so. It's not easy to just throw the top hook in, so I've got to be careful with how I do this. If he's just like so, I can control the hip with a top hip scissor. I back heel over the outside of the hip to make sure he doesn't get his hip away from me, and I cross my feet. Now when Adam tries to move his hips away, I've got control of that hip. I can use my top hip scissor to extend his knee away from his chest and put my top hook back in. So that's a great option. Another option I have, he pummels that knee free, just like so, keeps his knee tight to his chest. I can use a heel wedge. Okay, let's say you're not a big top hip scissor person, you can't extend very well. I can also take my knee up to my shoulder, and I can take my heel to the pocket of his hip. So now, even as Adam keeps his knee tight to his chest, I use my foot to push his knee away from his chest, and then I use my left foot to help extract my right leg. Right leg goes high, and now we have our posterior mount, or our body triangle. So again, he pummels his foot inside, his knee inside my foot. I have either a top hip scissor with an extension, or I can go with a heel wedge. Now, let's look at a situation where he beats the top hook, and then he beats the top knee by starting to bring his left hip a little higher and bring his left hip forward in front of my knee. Perfect. His hips are no longer between my knees, not in the sense that I want. I want my knee on the outside of the hip, and his hip is a little high. So a couple things we can do from here. One, I can put in a tight waist, put my foot on the floor, and I shrimp away. As I shrimp away, my tight waist is going to pull his hip. And I break him back down over that knee. Okay? So again, I'm here. Adam starts to escape that hip. I can grab the hip and I can literally pull the hip back to me. Okay? If the hip starts to escape, again, another thing I can do is I can try to collect the hip. I can use my left knee as a knee shrimp. I'm pinching inward, extending, trying to collect his knee with my hip. I can reinsert my hook. That's another way. Finally, a last option we have, let's say he beats the knee, he beats the hip, and he starts to sit up, and I feel like I'm losing the position. I feel like if I stay where I'm at, Adam's going to eventually free his right arm, his right elbow back across my body. Good, and he's going to recover position. Back down. So again, Adam starts to go to his knees. I can start to follow him, and I can hip heist with him. Okay, so he fought his way to turtle by beating my top knee, but I could hip heist and I end up in the turtle. Now from right here, if I see that the far elbow is open, I take my initial diagonal control by taking a half claw grip. Now my right hook anchors me to his right hip, and my left half claw grip here anchors me to his left shoulder. And now from here I can break him down by using a power half to crunch his chin to his chest. Elbow goes on the head, I connect my hands, and I sag my body weight off of this side, driving his chin into his own chest to break him back down. From here I control the head, and now I can start to put in my top hook, and we've recovered position. Here Adam beats the top hook, he beats the top knee. I start to sit up with him and I hip heist, staying tight to him. If the elbow is open, I'll go with a power half and I'll break him down. What if the elbow is closed? The elbow's tight to your body, to your ribs. Yes, and I can't get in for my diagonal control. What we've seen in the past, I can come through here and I can take a crotch lock. Now from the crotch lock, I slide my knee underneath, I pull him up here, and I take an outside lockdown. From the outside lockdown,